Om. 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 Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्. We were doing verse 27 and we had repeated that. Let's do the last few paras. So it was ahankara vimudhatma kartahamiti manyate. Prakritir kriyamanani gunaih karmani sarvashah ahankara vimudhatma kartahamiti manyate. So actions are performed in various ways by the gunas of Prakriti, the body, mind and senses. Deluded by the I notion, one thinks, I am the doer. And we saw what Purusha, Prakriti are. Each person, there are two aspects to an individual, Purusha and Prakriti. And the body, mind, senses are modifications of Prakriti. And then the different meanings of guna, 4 or 5 different meanings of guna. One is an adjective, one is virtue, one is the sattva, trigunas, the sattva, rajas, tamo gunas. A modification, that is also a guna. So technically, body, mind, sense complex is the karya, karana, sanghata. So the physical body is the karya and the mind and senses form part of the karana. So all actions are performed by these Prakriti gunas. So the person who thinks he or she is the doer of these various actions is referred to in this verse as ahankara vimudhatma. The I notion, when you say I am so and so, the person has become deluded, vimudha, in many ways. In fact, the delusion is multifaceted. Another meaning for guna is a knot. So one delusion with varieties of nuances, one big knot with innumerable knots within knots. These knots are the varieties of problems and notions that a person has. So the starting point for ahankara is the karya karana sanghata. And then I am as good as this body, mind, and senses. This is the conclusion. Then, over a period of years, we keep gathering a variety of notions about this I. This is where the Neti philosophy comes in. Neti, Neti. You keep saying, I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I'm not the senses. For you to disengage from this identity, the Nirvana Shatakam comes in place. So, because a baby, when the baby is born, does not think I'm white or black. It's only as the baby grows. As the baby grows up, slowly we start teaching the baby. First of all, the name, identity with the name, and then the color, then the religion, then so many things get added on. So many knots get added on to that initial knot. One's whole life is spent gathering more and more notions about oneself. And this is what is meant when it is said his mind is deluded, vimudha. So all the notions and the concepts we develop are all nothing but knots. And that is where we feel bound. The knot is something that binds you, that holds you. Whereas once you free those knots, then you feel expansive, you feel spacey. The Vimudhatma, the mind, one whose mind is deluded in 100 different ways by the Ahankara, thinks that he or she is a doer, Aham Karta, even though it is a physical body, mind, and senses that perform the actions. The person is the one who is aware of all the actions. In other words, the one who lights them up. He or she knows what does what, but at the same time is still able to think, I am the doer. This, therefore, is no ordinary avidya. It is not ignorance of an object or of a discipline of knowledge. It is self-delusion. Because the self is not clear, the obvious is not at all obvious. So because the self, what is the obvious? The obvious is that the actions are being done by the Prakriti gunas. But because we are self-deluded, we do not see the obvious. On the other hand, one who knows the Atma, the Atmavit or the Jnani, does not take oneself to be the Karta, as we shall see in the next verse. To tell someone who looks upon himself or herself as the Karta that he or she is not the Karta will only confuse the person. Nothing is ever said in the Shastra to suggest that one should not do karma. The Shastra says you are not the doer and that this knowledge is moksha. You can live a life of renunciation or you can live a life of karma yoga. In either case, knowledge is moksha. This is what is said. Not doing karma is meaningless. To tell a person who thinks he or she is a karta not to do karma is meaningless. Even if someone does no karma, it does not mean that he or she is not doing karma. As long as the person is a karta, one's every move is a karma. Standing is a karma. Listening to someone is a karma. Everything becomes karma because the person thinks he or she is the karta. As long as this notion is there, the person will always be doing one thing or the other, thinking that he or she is the doer. If at all you are to teach such a person, you will have to try to make the person understand that he or she is a karta. This understanding is purely jnana and has nothing to do with doing or not doing karma. So before we go on to the next verse, any sharing before? So earlier we saw that there are two types of teaching. One is by doing karma, by being an example, setting an example, being a role model, and the other is through words,
Yeah, Sapta.
Shabda Pramana, right?
Mm.
So, Jnana is something that you get through Shabda Pramana. It is not through action. Through action, you can role model, no doubt. You can walk the talk, and but it is through Jnana that one can actually remove the fundamental knot,
Sure.
the fundamental error of self delusion. Because what Swamiji was saying was, if Krishna and Arjuna were enlightened and if they were doing nothing, just by following their example, one would not realize themselves, one would not get jnana. That jnana has to come through words, through for a on a for a prepared mind, in a prepared mind. So that jnana is and then Atma Bodh tells us that since karma is a product of avidya, no amount of karma will get you out of avidya. So you need the sword of knowledge to get out of avidya. And this knowledge is through words, Shabda Pramana. So that is why, if at all you are to teach such a person, you will have to try to make the person understand that he or she is akarta. This understanding is purely jnana and has nothing to do with doing or not doing karma. See, even as we are understanding, as we are reading and understanding, what is happening? It is that clarity getting dawned little by little in the mind, and that amounts to that's part of the jnana understanding rather than doing something. It's like in a dark room, all you have to do is take a lit candle And then the whole room dark, that the darkness just vanishes. Similarly is this aspect of jnana. But in order to get that light, you have to do that preparation. You have to first find a candle, find a matchstick, light it up. All that needs to be done. But once it is lit, nothing else needs to be done. So that lighting the match, the candle is through the Shabda Pramana.
So the finding candle and all that is Purushartha.
Is the
Yourself.
Purushartha, is all the Karma Yoga that we do to, to prepare the mind. Once it's lit, it is lit, right? So, and that knowledge is what? That knowledge is I am akarta. That self-delusion, that ahankara vimudhatma. Because every person has two aspects, the Purusha and the Prakriti. So the identity with the Purusha, when you're identifying completely with the Purusha, which the whole, the Advaita aspect, rather than the modifications of Prakriti. So when that fundamental knot is disengaged and it is removed, that is when, and that is a form, that comes with understanding, jnana. So beautiful to be in that state. We all obviously have some moments when we are in that state. It's just that it is not steady. It is not continuous like the flow of oil. But getting to that steady state of realizing that we are not the body, mind, sense complex. That I am not the doer. That is the beautiful state of moksha. Moksha is, I don't know whether you can call moksha as a state. Moksha is again, it is understanding. When you say state, it means it might change into another. Like state is like water, liquid. It's a liquid state. It can change into vapor, or it can, when you freeze it, it can become ice. So when you say state, there is always an element of change, whereas moksha is that changeless state, changeless. Again, for lack of words, you end up with saying state and things like that. But that is the unchanging, when you are in that space of non-change.
But when you say understanding, it's at the mind level, right?
Correct. Correct. It is only through the mind, no.
But then,
Manasa eva aptavyam. This thing, Atma Jnana, it has to dawn somewhere. Where is it? It is only in the mind. But in the purified mind. Not in the mind that is
prepared mind.
Yeah. Not in the mind that is still got this knots in there. It's also like in how you see the reflection of the sun or the moon in a lake that is very still and clear. If the lake is very muddy, forget about it. You will not find anything. But when that lake the mud has settled down, the waters are even when the waters are shaking, when there's a ripple, wave and a ripple, the reflection of the moon or the sun also is shaking. It's not steady. Whereas when the waters of the lake become still and it is crystal clear, the waters are clear, then you'll see the reflection of the sun so very clearly. It is still. So that moksha is not that you're just seeing the reflection. It is you realize that you are that. You realize you are akarta. That naishkarmya aspect, actionlessness. And even in that place, when a person is enlightened, that is why Gurudev keeps saying, when a person is enlightened, he will not go about saying he's enlightened. If he says, then he is not enlightened. Because you're in that pure space of actionlessness. You are an akarta. There's no more identity. Every time you say, I am so and so, it means you are, like in the previous paragraph it was mentioned, I am so and so. You have a notion. You start with the identification of the body, mind, sense. So see here, the I notion or I sense has all the attributes. When you say I'm so and so, the karya and the karana, one is deluded. So when you say I'm enlightened, again, what are you doing? You're identifying yourself with that enlightenment. Whereas that moksha is where there is no identity. There is you are just that one, that full, that purna. There is no other.
So beautiful. Yeah, very nice.
It is just like King Janaka saying, Aho. It's just that state that you're in that wonderment. Shall we move on to the next verse? Krishna then explained why the wise are not attached to karma. Tattva-vittu mahabaho guna-karma vibhagayoho guna guneshu vartanta iti matva na sajjate. Tu, whereas mahabaho, O Arjuna, guna-karma vibhagayoho, of the distinction between the body, mind, sense, complex, and action, tattvavit, knower of the truth, gunaha, senses, mind, and organs of action, guneshu, with reference to objects, vartante, engage themselves, iti matva, knowing this, na sajjate, is not bound. Tu, mahabaho, gunakarma vibhagayoho, tatvavit gunaah guneshu vartante iti matva na sajjate. Whereas, O Arjuna, the knower of the truth, knowing the distinction between body, mind, sense, complex, and action, knowing that the senses, mind, and organs of action engage themselves with reference to their respective objects alone, is not bound. In this verse, Krishna contrasted the jnani with the ajnani mentioned in the previous verse. The previous verse, the ajnani is the ahankara vimudhatma. The ignorant person takes the body, mind, sense complex, that is the karya karana sanghata, as oneself, and oneself to be the karya karana sanghata, thereby making no distinction between the two. This lack of discrimination is where individuality comes from, that which makes one seem unique and distinct. See, when you see yourself as distinct from the other, when that separation is there, that is when there is lack of discrimination, because you identify yourself with the body, mind, sense complex. The jnani, on the other hand, while taking the body, mind, sense complex as himself or herself, no doubt, does not take the self to be the body, mind, and senses. If the jnani were not identified with the body, mind, sense complex in this way, talking, walking, seeing, hearing, and thinking would not be possible. Since the jnani thinks, does actions, and so on, he or she also naturally has an ahankara. Here, the karya karana sanghata atma is being called the ahankara. I'll read this again. The jnani, on the other hand, see, the ajnani is one who, the ignorant person, takes the body, mind, sense complex, karya karana sanghata, as oneself, and oneself to be the karya karana sanghata, thereby making no distinction between the two. This lack of discrimination is where individuality comes from, that which makes one seem unique and distinct. The jnani, on the other hand, while taking the body, mind, sense complex as himself or herself, no doubt, does not take the self to be the body, mind, and senses. So, see, there is a distinction here. The self is seen apart from the body, mind, senses. If the jnani were not identified with the body, mind, sense complex in this way, talking, walking, seeing, hearing, and thinking would not be possible. Since the jnani thinks, does actions, and so on, he or she also naturally has an ahankara. Here, the karya karana sanghata atma is being called the ahankara. So this is that lesha avidya. I think that is what Gurudev talks of, or we learned earlier somewhere, where that little bit of identity is there that enables even the jnani to do the normal actions that one does. But then he, yeah.
Mm.
Please go ahead, Mara.
No, because yet he distinguishes between that self as not being the body, mind,
Correct.
sense complex.
Correct.
So he identifies that, discriminates between the atma and the anatma.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the jnani, so that's why they call that as a hankara, but still it's including the self with the body mind complex. But whereas the Ajnani is, he considered himself as the body mind complex, and the self also to be that body mind complex. So that's why the Atma is not been identified there.
There, for Ajnani, it is ahankara vimudhatma, whereas for the jnani, it is ahankara with viveka. He has that viveka, that discrimination.
Atma is more like a delusion, right? Like thinking,
Correct.
falsely believing that we are the one.
Correct.
Yeah, I am the one, like kind of.
Mm.
So, like this really makes you think. You always bring it up, like, who am I? Who am I? Keep asking that.
Mhm. Mm.
We have to keep asking that. It be the way to remember ourselves. This distinction.
Yeah, isn't it? Because
Yeah, definitely. Otherwise, even though with this knowledge we are reading, and we go into that body mind complex mode. Um, so unless you have that inquiry, self inquiry all the time, uh, that is hard to remember. Hard to I mean, you have the knowledge, but still, that ignorance is still, exists. So that asking that question will make you feel distinguish ourselves between these two.
that is why punah punaha, we have to
Mm,
keep doing this.
keep doing it. Yeah.
It's like that basket is so dirty. It has
Mm,
to keep, you'll have to keep going to the river to wash it again and again. But every time you are exposed to the knowledge,
mm,
some cleansing happening. We may
right.
not, we may not get it. We may not say, "Oh, I'm doing all of this," but where I'm not changing at all. But you never know. Every time you're doing it, that what is that? Shastra kripa, Atma kripa, Guru kripa, all that is, there is some change happening, no doubt.
Yeah, definitely.
And
Like when you're saying that muddled water and all that, you remember that Atma Bodh we read, Kad,
mm,
Kadak, that saw
Kataka,
that
yeah,
it clears
Jalam
that.
Kataka Renuvat, right?
Like something to settle that down, and so the clear
Yeah,
water.
it is that alum which uh, brings down all that dirt and it settles down itself.
Right. Mm. It was really nice. It really matters, right? Like Nanaji always says that. Remember all those verses,
Mm,
and it really works. Remembering those things, it helps to understand the Atman even more, better.
I wish all these leaders, so-called leaders, had little bit of exposure to the Vedanta Shastra.
Yeah, you were reading yesterday about that very, very apt, applicable to this situation. Yes.
True yajna, no? Mm,
Yeah. Yeah. Like
true
you.
yajna, realize the self.
Yeah. Was it that or the knowledge point you read?
And the knowledge point was called true yajna.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Right. 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 Yeah. 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 That's what the one we read.
True yajna, I'll just read this. Huh? Rage has no ears, nor does it have vision. It only has a reaction, and reaction leads to regret. Regret causes frustration, and frustration clouds reason. Unreasonable acts provoke rage, starting a vicious cycle. Self knowledge and devotion alone can free you from this vicious cycle. In the fire of knowledge, when rage and revenge are offered, the warmth of the blemishless self shines forth. This is the true yajna. How beautiful. So, in the fire of knowledge, when rage and revenge are offered, the warmth of the blemishless self shines forth. This is the true yajna. I think in the next chapter, chapter 4, we'll get to know different types of yajnas. How I think it
Mm,
was There was a little indication to that in the chapter 2 or 3, where
Yeah.
the prana itself is like you're offering the in breath to the out breath. Even
Mm.
the sound, when you're listening to sound, it is like you're offering it to it's like a yajna.
Mm.
So this, in the fire of knowledge,
Mm. Offering the rage and revenge.
offering rage and revenge are
Yeah.
offered. So in the
Yeah.
fire of knowledge, when you offer this identification with
Mm.
the body, mind, sense complex, the karya, karana, sanghata, you're offering it. Then what
Mm.
shines forth is that the blemishless self shines forth.
So so I didn't get that want and blemishes or
Blemishless self, the
uh,
self which is not blemished, doesn't have any impurity.
oh, okay,
Pure,
okay, okay. Okay,
pure,
blemishless. Okay, got it, got it.
blemishless.
Mm,
Yeah,
mm. Okay, okay.
blemishless.
Yeah. So when you read that, I mean, the first paragraph was like that Krodha,
Mm.
that 63, some more.
Jayato vishayan pumsaha.
Yeah, that so that verse is what, really reminding me that one, uh, that causes the distraction and how, and then how you,
The
this is the solution, the second paragraph where in the
correct.
fire of knowledge where you put the rage and revenge.
Yeah, Krodhat Bhavati Sammoha Sammohat. That
Mm,
that yeah.
right, yeah. And the way he gave us a self knowledge and the devotion is what is
Mm.
going to answer to this. Um,
Yes.
yeah, so self knowledge and devotion is so,
Alone can free you from this
yeah,
vicious cycle.
yes, yeah. Hmm.
That is why you need jnana and bhakti.
Yeah.
Yes.
We think that coming out of samsara, like for oneself, right? But at the same time, at when you looking at, when you want to serve other people and but benefit of others, also that self knowledge is so important, and the devotion to the Ishvara, right? So together, it not one by itself is going to change everything, but it is, even though the Atma is Brahman, we know all that stuff, but that devotion makes it, us whatever we are doing, we are that Ishvara Arpana Buddhi, we have to do it with that Buddhi. Yeah. So
That
that makes
prasada
it
buddhi will not come if there's no devotion,
right, right. So that,
isn't it?
so whatever we are doing, we have to do it to that Ishvara also. Then then this, and also considering everybody as the same, and same meaning, like with that respect we treat people, then we won't have this kind of problems.
Mm.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it becomes only dry knowledge.
Mm. Yeah.
Knowledge becomes juicy, and when there is an element of bhakti included in it.
Mm. So this knowledge point, really nice, Dr. Brahma. Like today, yesterday I attended it. It's nice to do the the kriya, and I wasn't sure the meditation was done after that kriya. Is that what? I was quiet anyway, but then I thought you're going to do the sagaj separately.
No, Sahaj, because not everybody who comes for the morning sadhana has done
Oh,
Sahaj.
oh, I see.
So, and then Sahaj is done usually even in a follow up. We just guide them into
Right, right, right. We
beginning,
just
then
do
they
it
do it
and
on their own. Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. That's good, good. Anyway, this itself, it was really very helpful to hear that
Mm.
Gurudev's Kriya. And I wanted that, but because I get the guidance up to that Basrika. After that, I do it on my own. Sometimes I don't get it correctly. That's why it's nice. Thank you
Yeah.
for doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've just posted this true yajna in the group for you to read again.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I was thinking about it. It was very nice. Yeah.
So the nature of delusion, thus both the jnani and the ajnani have this ahankara. The difference between the two being that the jnani does not take the self to be karya karana sanghata, whereas the ajnani does, which is why there is samsara for him or her. Samsara is in the self for the self. I'll read this again. Thus, both the jnani and ajnani have this ahankara. The difference between the two being that the jnani does not take the self to be karya karana sanghata. What does a jnani do? He only thinks, takes the body mind sense complex as himself or herself. So there is that little bit of ahankara where he takes the body mind sense complex as himself, but sees the self as different from the body mind sense complex. That is the jnani. Whereas the ajnani takes the self to be the karya karana sanghata. So there's a slight distinction here. One is seeing that the body mind self complex, the self is the body mind self complex. See, I'll just go back here.
Yeah. That self
Correct?
as, including the self as body mind complex. Uh, that is the ajnani, whereas jnani does not take the self as body mind sense
Not take,
complex.
yeah, does not take the self to be the body mind sense
Yeah.
complex.
Yeah. So that's a difference.
Yeah. Initially, it was not very clear to me. Even now, maybe there is a little lack of clarity, but I will just read this one more time. See
Yeah,
the
you were saying there is a little bit of ahankara in both.
mm,
I mean,
mm,
in jnani also, right?
correct,
But that is one that is applicable to these actions, because the jnani also does all this talking, walking,
correct,
all that with that body,
correct,
mind, sense complex,
correct,
along with self. So that
right,
why that's also called ahamkara. But then he doesn't consider himself a doer,
correct.
whereas the Ajnani, he says, I am aham karta. That's why
Mm,
ahankara. Here, the yeah, if you read further, maybe they
yeah,
may
we'll read
distinguish.
further. I will read this
Mm,
one more time and we'll read further. So in
sure.
this verse, Krishna contrasted Jnani with Ajnani. The ignorant person takes the body, mind, sense complex, Karya Karana Sanghata, as oneself, and oneself to be the Karya Karana Sanghata, thereby making no distinction between the two. He is Ahankara Vimudhatma. This lack of discrimination is where individuality comes from, that which makes one seem unique and distinct. The jnani, on the other hand, while taking the body mind sense complex as himself or herself, no doubt, does not take the self to be the body, mind, and senses. If the jnani were not identified with the body, mind, sense complex in this way, talking, walking, seeing, hearing, and thinking would not be possible. Since the jnani thinks, does actions, and so on, he or she also naturally has an ahankara. Here, the karya karana sanghata atma is being called the ahankara, the nature of delusion. Thus, both the jnani and the ajnani have this ahankara. The difference between the two being that the jnani does not take the self to be karya karana sanghata, whereas the ajnani does, which is why there is samsara for him or her. Samsara is in the self for the self. Because the Atma is taken to be the Karya Karana Sanghata Atma, there are individuals, each of whom is unique and distinct from every other individual. Thus, there is an as though division, an as though duality, Dvaita. The Shruti does not say there is Dvaita. It says only that there is as though duality. Dvaitam iva bhavati. Wherever there is this as though duality, there is death, mrityu, there is time, there is samsara. The jnani is referred to as tattvavit in this verse. The suffix tva is added to the noun to a noun to convey its abstract sense, its essence. For example, the truth or essence of a pot, ghatasya tattvam, becomes ghata tattva, potness. In English, the suffix ness is used in the same way. That is a pronoun and as such can stand for anything. Thus, tattva refers to that which is the truth or essence of everything. Tasya bhavaha. The one who knows the truth about oneself, the world, and God is called tattvavit, and the one who does not know this truth is called atattvavit. In this verse, tattvavit refers to one who knows the truth of the gunas, the modification that is the body, mind, sense complex, as well as of the karmas, meaning that the person can distinguish between the two. The distinction, vibhaga, here is that the body, mind, sense complex is an instrument, a karana. It is not the Atma. The Atma, is not the karana, the sense organs or the mind or the karya, the physical body. While the mind and senses perform their actions, they are only karanas, instruments. Atma is not an instrument. It is the self, the content of the subject, the doer. Therefore, a distinction is to be made between the essence of the subject and the instrument. The Purusha and the Prakriti. I think there's a little more, quite a lot more in this verse. So I think we'll stop here. I will just go back and read it one more time. So the nature of delusion, thus both the jnani and the ajnani have this ahankara. The difference between the two being that the jnani does not take the self to be karya karana sanghata, whereas the ajnani does, which is why there is samsara for him or her. Samsara is in the self for the self. He's got into those knots, the ajnani. And samsara is nothing but a whole bundle of knots, right? So, because the Atma is taken to be the Karya Karana Sanghata Atma, there are individuals. There is no Samatva Bhavana there. There are individuals, each of whom is unique and distinct from every other individual. Thus, there is an as though division, an as though duality, Dvaita. The Shruti does not say there is Dvaita. It says only that there is an as though duality. Dvaitam iva bhavati. Wherever there is as though duality, there is death, mrityu, there is time, there is samsara. This is a very powerful paragraph. So this as though division comes with this taking the self to be the karya karana sanghata atma. Then there is this distinction. Otherwise, if you do not consider the self to be the karya karana sanghata, there is only one entity, that is the self. Nothing else exists. There's no other. You're reveling in the advaita, that which is what a jnani does. Whereas an ajnani, because he takes the self to be the karya karana sanghata,
Yeah.
there is a distinction. I am different from the other. The other
That's
comes.
why the samsara exists, he says, right? Like because of
And it
you're
is
taking.
as though. It is
Yeah.
not the truth, right? The truth is what? The truth is there is only Brahma. Brahma Satyam, Jagan Mithya.
Yeah. This one is the second paragraph is for the jnani. I mean, the sense.
Yeah.
Also for us to understand the knowledge point also, this Atma is, sorry, the sentence is very nicely given, right? Like in terms of the body mind complex. That's why it's dying. It has death, but if you think of Atma as it's eternal and no can't be destroyed by any of that air, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, in that sense, as though duality is there, but then it's one.
The Shruti does not say there is Dvaita. It only says there is an as though duality.
Right. That's that Vedanta, like all those Upanishads saying the Atma is one. The
Correct.
Atman Paramatma is one. Uh-huh. Hmm.
That is what the whole gist of Vedanta Shankaracharya gave in just one sentence.
Mm.
What is that? Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya
Yeah.
Jivo Brahmaiva na paraha.
Mm.
The Jiva is none other than Brahman.
Brahman.
The truth is Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Jagat Mithya.
Mm.
Mithya, this is that Mithya, no? This as though is this
Right.
Mithya.
Mm.
There is a reality to it, but it's an as though reality. If you remember, we learnt about those three orders of reality. Satyam, Pritya, and Mithya.
Right.
Mithya is something which is non-existent, like the
Not
rabbit's
Pucha.
horns.
Right.
There is
Right.
no rabbit's horns. That
Mm-hmm.
is non-existent. But as though existent is Mithya.
Mithya. Right. Right.
That happens when the Upadana Karana and the Nimitta Karana both are the same.
Oh, yeah.
Nimitta Karana,
Nimitta
right?
Karana and Upadana Karana.
The Karana. So
That
Brahma is the
Mm.
Maya is nothing but an offshoot of Brahma. So there is that Brahma is both the efficient cause as well as the material cause. Whenever this is the case, then the whatever comes out of this, whatever is created out of this is mithya, is non-existent. Just like our dream, we are the efficient cause and we are the material cause for the dream. But the dream, as long as you're in the dream world, it is as though. But the moment you wake up, It seems very real when you're dreaming, but it is only as though, because the moment you wake up, it just vanishes. Where is the dream? It is not there. So the same with the Rajju Sarpa Bhranti. The moment you take light, you realize that that rope you thought all along was a snake is not a snake. It is the rope. So the whole thing, this duality is an as though, when there is no distinction between the self and the Karya Karana Sanghata. Therefore, whenever there is this as though duality, there is death, mrityu. You have fear of death. See, if you look at Prahlada and all those, and all the jnanis, they do not have the fear of death. Now there is this war happening. If one is really established in the self, like see, when Gurudev came and met all of us online, he was so centered and there is no fear. Whereas everybody else had so many, there was so much of anxiety about the whole thing happening. So there is fear. There is fear, there is death, there is time, and there is samsara, when this as though duality exists. So I think we'll stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyone wants to share? We have a few minutes. So we'll catch up tomorrow again. We'll read this verse 28. We are in 28. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat Shri Krishnarpanamastu. Jai Gurudev. Because of lack of time, we are not playing the meditation, but any of you who's keen to join in the morning sadhana, please do. Jai Gurudev. Jai Gurudev. I couldn't hear anything.